I was reading the title of what we were going to talk about. First off, I was just so excited that we were going to get to chat because you are one of, if not the nicest people in the Bitcoin mining industry. Is, it the, is Texas the Bitcoin mining superpower of America? And you look at the full roster of the things that we've talked about today, and it's like, okay, you've got the gigabrain programmers, you've got these heavy hitters on the political side, you've got these advocates in these different avenues, you got the energy experts. There's a big hole, huge hole. And it's the human side, the people side, the culture side. And out of all the people here, I think you embody it best. I would love, first off, to start, what do you do? Introduce us to yourself.
Well, thanks for having me, Rob. Good to see you again. My name is David Schatz. I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations at Riot. Why do people like me? I don't know. Good question. Try to be nice to people, try to move people up and help people get better. So that's my goal in life.
We think about Bitcoin mining, we often are thinking about the technology. Think about the tech stack, you're thinking about your vendors, you think about who you're going to buy from. Loads of people here run mines of various sizes, and you don't necessarily think about human capital. How does human capital change from running a megawatt mine up to multi-hundred megawatt sites distributed in far reaches of Texas?
Yeah, that's a great question. It becomes far more complicated. So as you scale, right, you can have a megawatt mine and you can run it with one person. Kind of a do-all, right? That's checking the air systems, they're fixing the miners, network, that kind of thing. But as you scale, now you have to break out teams and can quickly turn into hundreds of people. So,
Hundreds,
yeah. So at our facility in Rockdale, we have about 250, and then about the same thing for our Corsicana site, and then we have some other satellite offices as well.
So for folks who have never been to a mega mine like this, they hear a couple hundred people. First off, what? Second off, break it down for me. What are people doing? What kind of people do I need to run a really large site? Because if I'm setting up a megawatt or a half megawatt, I think, I have an electrician on call every once in a while. I have an intern from the local community college that comes and plays with my tech stack. I kind of remote into it, but we're not doing this at a couple hundred megawatts. What are these 200, 250 people doing?
Yeah. So when you start talking about hundreds of megawatts, now you've got hundreds of transformers. You've got, hundreds of dry coolers. You have tens of thousands of miners. You have, hundreds and hundreds, thousands actually of network switches. 50 miles of cable between, the Cat 6, between fiber, you name it, it compounds. So, just our electrical team, for instance, is 20 to 30 people. You've got thousands of breakers on site at any given time. Things trip. There's preventative maintenance. You have to service your transformers. You're pulling panels open to do infrared readings, based on the maintenance milestones. So preventative cleaning on top of the failures that happen on a regular basis. So, that's just one aspect of it. Now you go to the dry coolers, and, in Corsicana we have, I forget the exact number, but 160 or 200 dry coolers. And so you've got to do your preventative checks where you're checking the fans and you're making sure the flows are good and the pressures, and you're adjusting the pressures. So that, and it's 24/7, right? You don't turn off at night. So now you've got to have staff on site and you've got to have management on site at night. And then who's going to run the water truck because that dry cooler needs additional water on the inside. So now you've got staff that are on the maintenance side that are filling trucks and making sure that water is available to perform these service maintenance. And now you need inventory, right? I need a breaker at 2 a.m. to go replace a breaker in a panel.
You running a Home Depot?
You're not running a Home Depot for a 600 amp breaker or something, or 4,000 amp breaker. So now you've got to have inventory and you've got to have it stocked, and somebody's got to properly check it out because we want to make sure that our SOX team isn't getting hammered when we do our audits and things like that. So there's a lot of steps to it.
And I'm assuming everybody who applies for a job is a hardcore Bitcoiner, so they understand all this.
Yeah. So I will plug Texas. Texas has probably the best workforce in the world. It is unmatched. you have experts in a million different industries, and it translates. You can teach somebody an inventory that worked at Home Depot for 20 years how to inventory machines and miners. It translates. IT, we've got hackers that we have on our staff that monitor our IT systems. Our developers. Yesterday they were talking about such a diverse developer and engineer pool in Austin. I couldn't agree more. We have so many engineers and developers here in Austin that, I mean, they're on a daily basis updating our dashboards and changing things. Like, we've built all this stuff in-house from the input from the electricians and minor maintenance and the mechanical guys, and they're taking all the input and making these adjustments. So
you don't have to actually import somebody from San Francisco or New York. We can do it locally.
Yeah, you can often do it locally. And when we first started doing this, it was such a new industry. There wasn't somebody in minor maintenance that you could, oh, you're an operations specialist in minor maintenance. No, it's, okay, you worked at an airport in operations. Let's teach you, okay, here's the process flow. How are we going to set up the procedures? And then train folks, on how to actually service the equipment.
Are people surprised to find this out when they join the team, that they're not joining some high-tech, weird, futuristic thing? They're joining something that's similar to what they were doing weeks or months ago.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. We've had actually some folks that have joined, like, on the construction side, that have done construction their whole life and are experts, and then they start seeing kind of some of the things that are happening on site, and they will transfer to a different position because their experience, and knowledge translates to something else that they may find more interesting. And our HR team does a great job of going out to conferences and things like that, and job fairs to promote that and say, hey, if you've got an operational background or a tech background, you don't necessarily, it does translate. You don't need to be an expert in this field. We can kind of help train that in-house.
You're probably one of the few people on the face of the earth who can speak with direct experience to what happens when a business of this size comes into a town, stays and grows. Mm-hmm. Can you tell us a little bit about your origin story when it comes to the Windstone site in Rockdale, and how you've seen the town change?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we came in, I'll say broke, and had some people kind of, believe in us and gave us some opportunity to go with our vision. And it worked out well for us, but it's really a collaboration of the entire town.
What year was that?
That was 2019.
2019. Yep. And 2019, you show up, main drag in Rockdale, and what are you telling people walking down the street when they ask you what you're doing in town?
Well, there was 4 of us employed at the company at the time, and it was, hey, we're going to build this big Bitcoin mine. We kind of don't know what we're doing, but we're going to figure it out, and we're going to make a huge impact on the town. We're going to make it a positive experience for everybody, and we're going to do this thing. So back us or don't, we're doing it.
And I'm sure they immediately said, yep, go for it.
I think we had a pretty open arm welcome coming in. I think, we were open and honest with people. Again, it's like building relationships. So we spent a lot of time talking to the mayor and the judges and it kind of explaining what we're about, what we wanted to do, and like what we wanted to do for the town. And at that time, they had kind of a huge pool of very qualified people that were having to travel to Austin and other places because the old Alcoa facility that we're actually at had gone out of business several years prior to. So there's a ton of really skilled folks in the power generation side, and again, maintenance folks and mechanical and construction and all these different things. And here we're coming in to do something kind of similar to try and revive the town, and we could help employ some of these folks. So it's kind of a win-win for everybody.
So in those 6 years from 2019 to today, what has materially changed in the town? Because obviously the mine is set up, the mine has gone through many iterations, it's expanded, you've hired on, you've gone and you've now done this again in Corsicana, whereas now that's the expansion happening. But Rockdale itself now is really living out what happens when you have a mine that establishes and says, hey, we're not just kind of a fly-by-night operation, we're going to be here a while. What's materially different in the town now, 6 years gone by?
Yeah, I think a couple things. We've really kind of integrated in the community. You know, I don't live in Rockdale anymore, but it's still always going to be a place of home to me. You know, we've revamped the dog shelter. Like, we have a whole team that manages taking care of that and cleaning it. When we first went there, the shelter didn't have air conditioning. It's 100 and something degrees in the summer, right? And we're able to, you know, spend some of the resources that we have to kind of help give back to the town. We've seen new restaurants come in. Rockdale has this first coffee shop, which I try and frequent quite a bit. But aside from that, seeing like our employees that have never owned a home buying homes or buying their first new car, that's been a pretty big positive impact that we've seen.
So it's kind of changed the pride of the town. The thing that I noticed my first time out there was that, you know, people like being from where they're from. And they don't control some of the macro, right? If a big company comes in, or if a big company leaves, but you make a material difference in people's lives, and it's almost like the whole pride of the town rises up in a certain kind of way. Is this what you're describing, what you've seen?
Yeah, absolutely. You know, like you said, people, you know, they're from a small town, they want to stay there, and you know, it's a you know, win-win for everybody because they're able to make an actual living, right? We pay very well for folks. So seeing some of these people start off at the very entry level, Heath Davidson here, he's a story as well. So he started off at Alcoa, was laid off several years before we came in. He started off in our inventory team, but had a skill set. He's technical background, very sharp guy, and he's now vice president of operations. So he's running that whole facility as well as our Corsicana facility, and he's born and raised in Rockdale. So, and there's tons of stories like that. You know, we have our guys that are started off in construction, and now they're very high up in our safety department, and they're buying their first home, and they're able to stay and live in Rockdale, and their sons work for us, or their sisters work for us. And like seeing that, it's like when we have generations of family members working, it's a pretty cool thing.
Is Heath going to announce his future mayor run for?
He might be running for mayor one of these days.
Feel free to, if you want to send us off for the end of our inaugural Thames, that would be a beautiful way. Just know that we would support it, no pressure. But it could be done. So obviously, major operations aren't just happening in Rockdale. Mm-hmm. You go ahead and you start to do the same thing in Corsicana. Different town, different culture. Yep. Still, if you can describe it as kind of a satellite to another nearby major town, what lessons do you bring into Corsicana on the people side that were informed from having worked so hard in Rockdale?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we'd learned a ton of lessons on how to recruit. Was one big thing. So when we first went out there, we knew, hey, we need to get with the local colleges, figure out, you know, the different programs they have, what are the apprenticeships that are already working there that we can kind of partner with. They have their local workforce commission that's kind of like a quasi-staffing agency that we can work with and pull talent from. We knew day one, you've got to go in and meet with the commissioners, you've got to meet the judge, you got to meet the mayor, kind of explain what we're doing. You know, unless you have a relationship with those folks, you're not getting a tax abatement, right? You know, so and they're going to be your major proponent to talking to the town. So, you know, Bitcoin's new. It's a scary thing when it comes into a small town and people don't want their water being drained out completely. And they think that, you know, you could be coming in and pulling all the power and they're going to have to shut off in the summertime and not have AC. So a lot of those questions and concerns can be mitigated by the local officials. And so making sure you come in and say, hey, here's what we're actually up to. Come look at our site, come meet our people, make a relationship. They're able to kind of help with that.
Yeah, what are the specific kind of techniques that you use? Because I'm sure that you learned a ton in Rockdale. Mm-hmm. The second you wind up in Corsicana, you know, it's not even that people hate Bitcoin mining, mm-hmm. It's that they don't necessarily want change.
Yep.
Like what is the technique? Is you go to a commissioner, but are you just kind of going to the local farmers market? Are you trying to meet with community organizations? How do you start to do that? Because when it starts, it's kind of a promise, right? Hey, this is what we're going to do, but you know, I'm not sure. Things have been cool for a while. You want to change things. Yep. How do you get really specific with that?
Yeah, so all the above. So we went to farmers markets. We set up town halls. So we would rent.
Did you sell anything?
I bought some things. I didn't sell anything. I got some good steaks. So we would set up these town halls and you know, rent out a local facility and you know, offer an event where we, you know, have food and drinks, and it's just kind of like a social hour. Hey, we'll put up a PowerPoint and we'll talk for an hour and a half. Let you know what we're about, what our plans are as far as hiring the community. Again, you know, Bob's a construction guy, but Bob can be great in this field, and here's what it pays. And like that's who we're looking for, and explain kind of what Bitcoin is. You know, we've had Pierre come in and do some talks as well to kind of help tell us what Bitcoin is, and you know, get rid of some of those concerns. And then just listen to questions, right? What are the concerns? What are the major pain points? And sometimes it can be simple as, you know, Sally Mae's trying to have a church get together on Sunday, and having concrete trucks down the road doesn't work for her at that time. Like, okay, we'll move the construction. You know, we can.
And you do have to be responsive to it.
Correct. You have to be, because I mean, well, you don't have to be, but it's a cohesive relationship, and if you can make a small adjustment to not have a negative impact on somebody's life, A, it shows them that you actually care, because why not? What's the big deal? And B, it kind of works for everybody. And then they're going to go tell everybody, hey, you know, I was screaming at David, and then they just moved the trucks. He's actually a nice guy. So quit hating on him. You know?
So now we know why everyone thinks you're such a nice guy.
There you go. Sally Mae, thanks.
This is the stuff that you would never think about, because it would be so easy if somebody sees in the headlines, oh, Riot is going to enter Corsicana. Riot is entering Rockdale. You think, oh, it's a big company. They're going to come. They're going to take over. They're not going to care about us. And there's these million little inflection points that you're describing where they just need to have a person. They need to have somebody to call and to talk to. How quickly does that change?
You know, some people it's quicker than others. So like sometimes it's a very simple little thing. Sometimes, you know, in Corsicana we had some opposition. There was a coalition against Bitcoin that they were just off in la la land and saying stuff that didn't.
Were they
exist.
Greenpeace funded?
They were Greenpeace funded. You can't fix that. But most of the other stuff was pretty quick, easy little things that we can adjust. You know, the lights blink somebody's house at night because we're running a 24/7 operation. Great, let's buy some special covers that redirect light at the ground at the front gate so it's not shining in their window. It's just little small things like that. And then another big one that's helpful is, like, you know, as part of our being good stewards of the community is we want to give back, right? You actually have to care. And you know, there's nothing better than having employees come in and say, hey, you know, we've lived here for 20, 30 years. There's no lights at the baseball field. Like, okay, great, let's help with that. Let's put up some lights. You know, it's a small cost. We have electricians. We can buy the lights, that kind of thing. It's donating to local charities or participating in, you know, the Heritage Bowl, sponsoring things like that, where it's what our employees that live there want to see done. They make the recommendations, and then we can give back to that, and it just steamrolls from there.
What's your vision for what a robust community looks like, where you have this anchor operation, whether it be Corsicana, whether it be Rockdale? What does it look like after we've kind of talked about the 0 to 1, but I'm kind of curious about what's the 1 to 1,000? Like, how does the town change in your mind through these continuous little touches that improve people's quality of life?
Yeah, I think it makes everything flourish, right? So my goal is to bring everybody into the organization that wants to come work for us, right? And we can either start you off in, we call it kind of our staffing level, which is our data center techs, and then often folks will pick from there where they want to go, whether it's electrician, engineering, whatever. We'll provide an avenue for that, right? We'll pay for school. We'll get you a journeyman license for an electrician. If you want to run the crane, we'll send you to crane school. We bought a crane. We got 10 people on site that run a crane. You want to go security? We'll pay for you to get your security license. We'll take you to the range training. We'll do that. So the goal is to have as many people come to our organization, continue growing, watch them grow within the organization. They're going to stay in town. They're going to buy a house in town. They're going to buy from the local car dealership. They're going to eat the local restaurants. Those restaurants are going to expand. More housing is going to come in. So it's really just, what can we do to create a positive impact on the town and watch it flourish, and everybody wins.
What I think is so special about your work is that it's all these tiny, very invisible things that are really meaningful to the people on the ground level. Is it also important to kind of share those stories outward to the broader community? Obviously, if you do the outward PR tour, but you don't actually do the stuff in town, well, it's good marketing, but it doesn't really help anything. What you're describing is, no, we invest an inordinate amount of time into actually taking care of things. Are you satisfied to just kind of leave it and say, hey, we're flourishing now, like, this is how it works? Or do you think that we have a responsibility industry-wide? Because sometimes you hear, oh, so-and-so's mine is too noisy, so-and-so's mine is causing construction issues. Do you think we do have a responsibility at the industry level to kind of either set an example or to show folks on a broader space how to do this kind of work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a great point. I think as new as this industry is, it's important for us as stewards of the community and to back Bitcoin that we are kind of the industry standard and that we are taking the mature route in every avenue we can, because you can have one small negative interaction with somebody and it's going to taint them to Bitcoin, right? So it's different from a car dealership, right? They've been around for hundreds of years. Somebody has a bad experience, they move on, they go to the next car dealership. But being that Bitcoin is so new, a lot of people don't understand it. It's very important that we're proactive and make sure that first interaction or their 10th interaction is positive.
How did you know this was going to work? Did you start as a hardcore Bitcoin maxi community organizer? We're here to orange pill your town.
No, I am an idiot that will not give up. That's about it.
You fit in Bitcoin. Welcome to us.
Yep.
How did you? Yeah, you wind up in Rockdale, a place that you're not from, tasked to do something that you have no qualification or prior experience doing.
Yep.
What?
Long story. I used to work in a union as a mechanic on locomotive trains, and quit to do this little side venture 6 months before I got a pension because just the timing, that's how it worked out, and didn't have a backup plan. So I'm like, I'm all in.
You're a great Bitcoiner. It's the all gas, no brakes model. Works very well.
Yep.
And then you wind up with this ragtag group of builders, building what was one of the first mega mines of this site, the Rockdale site. When does it start to click to you in your mind that you're doing something actually really substantial for the community? That it's not just about this magic internet money that we're figuring out?
Yeah, so I think in the 2020, probably late 2020, early 2021, when I started seeing employees buy their first homes and like actually seeing them flourish, I'm like, oh, okay, we're actually doing something here. We're onto something. What do we take this to the next step? And I think that was when we started to pivot and start creating growth plans for individual departments. Like, hey, if this doesn't work out, and I think Bitcoin's going forever, but at this point we were really early on and things were very expensive. And somebody mentioned margin calls earlier. When you're a small company, you can get a couple $1 million margin call overnight. It's crippling. There's scary times. It was a rough road for a while. So I think it was really just, hey, how do we pave the way and make sure that everything is, everybody has an option, right? And they're set for the future. You get your journeyman electrician's license. If we go away, you're set. But then kind of fast forward later on into 2021 as we started to really see things get our footing and understand that we were doing something awesome and we weren't going anywhere. And then fast forward a little bit later in 21, we met Riot and we're lucky to be purchased by them and then took it to the next level.
So it's not good enough just to say, take care of the developers. You also have to take care of the people and communities that take care of the businesses that do the mining.
For sure. I mean, like I said, building a Bitcoin mine of the size is no small feat. So these are the people that are out at 2 a.m., digging trenches, saying
hi to the foxes.
Yeah, saying hi to foxes literally at night. Our security had a burn barrel because there was no lights out at some point in time, and they're the ones, making sure nobody's stealing stuff in the middle of the night. So you've got to take care of those people, and they're going to see it, right? If you actually care and you're trying to make sure that they succeed and they're taken care of, they're going to work 10 times harder. It's easy. It's really easy.
On that note, could we get a huge round of applause for David?
What a legend. What a legend. Thank you, guys.